Welcome, Aurélie. Today on this, I would say, beautiful day, we welcome Aurélie Beauvais, Managing Director of Euroheat and Power. Welcome, thanks for having us. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for
first
the
of all,
invitation.
thanks for making some time for us. First of all, I have to say, you and your team are doing a fantastic job, highlighting the importance of sustainable heating within Europe and beyond. It is an important topic. We are all facing some challenges. So, but Aurélie, could you tell us maybe a bit more about, first of all, about your background and how you get involved in Euroheat and Power?
Thanks a lot, Wim. It's a pleasure to see you and to see you, the Zero Friction team, as always. I think it's a collective work that we've all been doing together in the past years to really accelerate the heat transition.
For sure.
And it's been great fun so far.
That's for sure.
I've been very lucky, I think, to enter the heat world 2 years ago by joining Euroheat and Power. I have more a political science, public affairs background, but I was dragged into energy and climate policies very early on in the electricity field mostly, and indeed in Euroheat and Power, which is the European body promoting sustainable district heating and cooling solutions. We are really focusing on the heat transition, and that is kind of the challenge of the next decade. So it's pretty exciting for us at the moment.
Okay, exciting times for sure.
Yeah.
What inspired you actually to work in this sector, in the district heating and cooling sector?
Well, I think a genuine excitement and interest about the opportunities that lie there. When you look at the heating sector in Europe, you see that it's huge, clearly half of our demand, but it's also very far away in terms of decarbonization. We are more than 75% fossil fuel, and this fossil fuel dependency was really exposed crudely by the Ukraine war, and it was responsible for the soaring energy prices that we've seen now for households and businesses. So it really put it on the spotlight. The challenge is huge, and indeed, when you look at district heating, you see a technology with so much potential. It's 13% of the heat market today, but it could supply 48%. And it's so unique in its ability to really use so different clean sources, renewable sources, recovered heat sources, and to really enhance the synergies in the urban environment. So, a huge potential, and it was super interesting to work in unleashing it.
Okay, fantastic. Fantastic drive. Great to see. And we feel it also, I have to say, from you and your team. So thanks for that. Maybe can you give us a bit of an overview of Euroheat and Power and the mission that you have within the district heating and cooling sector?
So we are actually, I would say, a venerable organization because we celebrated our 70th birthday in Rotterdam with all our members this year. So we were, it was a good moment, a community moment. And yes, we were created to serve the purpose that we still serve today, which is very much to represent the interest of our sector towards European institutions. And that means it goes both ways, meaning it's also a lot of communication and knowledge sharing with our sector to help them identify the new opportunities, the new business models, understand how the industrial and business landscape is evolving to help them adapt to the new requirements. And of course, then the other way is to communicate to the European institutions what we need in terms of regulatory instruments, financing instruments to carry out this transformation in an affordable way for the consumer and sustainable way for our cities. So that's our prime role.
Okay. And if you can highlight a bit on the current key initiatives, where are your focus points at the moment and projects, key initiatives and projects within Euroheat and Power? Can you elaborate a bit more on that? Yeah,
absolutely. It's a very exciting moment now because we have finished a European mandate. So in the past 5 years, we worked to finalize the Fit for 55 package. So it's a set of 12 European regulations and legislations that are going to support the growth and the decarbonization of our industry everywhere in Europe. This package is now adopted. And now we had elections and we have a whole new mandate. And so I think we will have two main objectives as an organization. The first one is very much to work on the delivery of this package. How to make it work for citizens, because we've been working a lot identifying the challenges that still remain. And we have a good framework, but we still think that for citizens, it's still too complex to look into the administrative and regulatory landscape, too expensive many times to finance both the renovation of their house and the switch to clean heat appliances. And in the current economic and political environment, you need to find ways to make it easy for the consumer or the citizen, or it will not work. And policymakers will not have the courage to enforce those policies and remove the gas boilers from the building. So we are working on something that we call the citizen deal.
Okay.
So how to have proposals for the EU to position itself as a facilitator, so that we have ambitious building renovation and clean heat policies, but without putting too much administrative and financial burden on the consumer. That's one of our big projects. And we are also working a lot on raising awareness in general at European level on the need for better regulation and new, smarter financing instruments, also to have innovative projects or bigger projects like waste heat recovery, geothermal. So we're working on to have a heating and cooling strategy maybe, or robust actions at EU level. And we will launch a campaign at our summit in November. It's called Bring Heat Home. And it's going to be all about that.
Okay, fantastic. I'm looking forward to hearing more about it. Maybe a point that I wanted to elaborate on is that you say we still have to do a lot of promotion or information sending to these policymakers. Do you feel that there is already a big shift in thoughts and shift in movement towards that this recognition of that the need for sustainable heating is there, or do you feel that already that it's picking up, or do you feel that you still have to promote really actively a lot and making them aware that it's really important being there, or are we already beyond that step?
I think it has started, and notably the war in Ukraine really exposed the heating and cooling dependence. So I think member states and the EU realized that the problem was heating. And that's why we ended up with a Repower EU, with heat pump rollout targets and this type of things. It was a partial solution, because district heating should have been the other leg of the strategy, but it showed that already there was a clear understanding that the problem was heating. And all the citizens that were terrified by their bills, it was heating bills mostly, same for industries. So that was clearly identified. But I think what has been missing is really political courage. We know that this heat pump action plan that has been delayed. We know one of the reasons was the scare that publishing such a strategy before the election could actually even further hamper climate-friendly results. Let's say. So that's why we work a lot on how to make it both politically viable and socially viable to work on heating. And we need more awareness, though, definitely, because we need to give policymakers the trust that they can start addressing this issue. For
sure, because it's highly needed. Sensitive and needed. If you think about it, how are you making, within Euroheat and Power, making impact day in, day out on this energy, and more specifically on the heat transition?
So we try to... Let's say there are different ways. Of course, the prime one is advocacy. So trying to have this business-friendly environment, regulatory environment. And in the Fit for 55 package, for example, you have a lot of good provisions for our sector. The recognition of recovered heat, for example, as a sustainable source to achieve our renewable targets and our sustainability targets. You have now mandatory heating and cooling plans for all cities above 45,000 citizens in Europe. So all of that are achievements that we contributed to have in a very concrete manner. But we also work a lot with our companies, with our members like Zero Friction, to help raise also the visibility of those solutions that are there, whether it's modern low-temp district heating, digitalization, innovative projects in general. We try to contribute to having our companies, meet, learn together, and do some peer growth together.
Okay, great. What's your view on the current state of district heating and cooling industry in Europe?
I think it's an exciting time, and our industry is facing a lot of growth, but is also facing a huge transformation. We are still at a time where the old and the new are living together side by side. Yeah. So we have on the one hand huge networks in Central Eastern countries in particular, which are still super fossil dependent, inefficient, and have a bad reputation. And we are working on it to also promote the transition of those networks, but also in some cases older network in other countries. Like Germany, for example, which still is transforming a lot from fossil to more sustainable. And we have a lot of new networks which are already so sustainable, so innovative. We were communicating recently on the Paris Olympic Village, but there are so much other examples. The cooling system in Barcelona, and that is really state-of-the-art clean heating and cooling solutions that we're talking about. So the transformation is about bridging those two worlds and accompanying the sector. Because it has to be, it has to shift to the modern side of things in the next 10 years, basically.
So if I can summarize in two elements, it's like making sure that the older systems are modern, getting modernized, and the sources are more sustainable, and keep on promoting the new systems and keep which are already modern and digital.
Absolutely.
And, okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
What do you see are the biggest challenges the sector is facing as of today, on today?
Yeah. I think one good news, talking about non-challenges at least, is that for a lot of other sectors, the challenge is the technology itself.
Yeah.
Like if you look at more innovative aspects, I don't know, that there was a lot of talk about hydrogen. It is still a lot of technological learning that has to be done to produce, let's say, renewable hydrogen in a cost-effective way. It's permissive, but it's not. It's still in the trying to reach its maturity. When you look at district heating, for example, it's there. The technology per se is mature.
Yes.
It's
Correct.
well proven. It's been developed since the 70s. It's well managed, and so the technology, we have innovation, and we are of course innovating all the time. But the core of the technology is there, well proved and ready to scale. So the challenges are rather into those aspects that will help us scale up. And we're talking mostly regulation and financing, I think. So what we're missing that is in Ghent, but that is not in every city in Europe, is, for example, a very clear plan when it comes to where we are going to modernize and expand, where we are going to build district heating, which then provides our utilities and our companies with the certainty that they need to invest, to be sure that they will have a return on investment, to trust, to spend money, to further digitalize, for example. So that is missing, and we are working to have it more, and the financing, because some projects are still more innovative or more risky. Waste heat recovery sometimes from industrial sites, for example, you have different risks, and here the financing tools sometimes are not yet adapted.
Good that you highlight the innovation part also, because if you look at it, how important do you believe innovation for the future of district heating and cooling, and what role, of course, does Euroheat and Power play in promoting it, this innovation?
So innovation is absolutely critical. I think indeed, because it's often, I find it sometimes a bit crazy that we plan, energy policies that will go up to 2050, but probably we have no clue. Also, what type of technologies we will have in 2050, and I hope that we will have much more efficient solutions at hand. But so when it comes to district heating and cooling, we are, it's the key also for our growth and decarbonization. So if you look at low temperature district heating or 5th-generation district heating systems, innovative, but of course we need to roll more of that to be able to incorporate more renewables. Of course, digitalization, a lot of networks are not yet digitalized, and we see that it's helping a lot. We can come back to it later, but to decarbonize or gain efficiency, waste heat recovery, still embryonic in many countries, but so much potential. So innovation is key for us to continue to be relevant in the future of the transition. And at Euroheat and Power, we try to do a bit of everything, let's say. So a bit of advocacy to make sure that our innovative solutions are also recognized and they can benefit from proper support to be deployed. We work a lot on European projects through our DHC Plus platform. So we have 19 ongoing EU projects. And here we work with our member community as well to support either better knowledge on innovations, like we had a lot of projects on waste heat, which helped a lot understanding better where are the opportunities and the business models, or concretely, yes, to help developing new technologies.
Okay, if we dive in a bit on these projects that you have been supporting, can you highlight a few of the successful examples where you have supported or been involved with them that you see that you are proud on as an organization?
So European projects, you mean?
Yes. Yeah, or like you say, the project that you're involved, like with DHC Plus or to the...
So I think in terms of EU projects, for example, there was one project which was called Reuse Heat, and it was extremely extremely useful for us at all in many perspectives. First, because we had a first understanding of the various business cases to recover heat, whether it's from data centers or hospitals or metro station, and it really opened a bit the mind also of the sector and then of policymakers on the opportunities that are here. It's also the first project that tried to connect a heat map to help also companies have access to existing waste heat sources everywhere in Europe, and you realize it's huge, and it actually quantified also for the first time the resources. And we discovered, for example, that sewage water was one of the biggest untapped resource in every single city. So yes, there was a lot of progress for us. And then in terms of concrete district heating projects, of course we don't we're totally neutral as Euroheat and Power, but we always like to promote the best practices, and there are so many. So indeed, from the optimization system with in Bologna, which is a city where the network has been greatly digitalized, in Utrecht, where there is this cloud platform together with E.ON, which is really improving the efficiency of the system. And also you folks, for example, what you're doing here in Ghent with Luminous. I mean, there are so many good examples.
Okay. Great. Well, speaking about that, if you look at digitalization and the tools, how do you see the role of digital tools and software in, one hand supporting, but maybe also transforming the district heating sector?
It's very important, and I think we really see the advantages that we get. So first, the more obvious aspect would be, that maybe the efficiency, that networks using more, or utilities using more digital tools, they understand better also where are the losses that are made or how they can better enhance the efficiency of their systems. And here we see that it's a great way already without having to redo entirely the hardware, to keep what you have, but make it much more efficient. It's happened a lot also in Central Eastern countries, in Poland. So that's a very good progress to decarbonize also. And of course, on the consumer end, it's also very important, first, to ensure that our utilities and companies have a better, more trustful relationship with their clients. Because trust for district heating, I think we need to prove ourselves a bit more than others, because when you're in a network, it's not that easy to disconnect. There is this sense sometimes of natural monopoly, which many policymakers say that it's like that. For us, it's not really the same, because it's very local, but what is true is that we need to show an extra white hand, I think, in terms of transparency, to reassure the consumers and the cities that everything is priced correctly, that the consumer is protected, and consumer end solutions like the ones that you provide also help this transparency. Okay.
Speaking about this as well, what impact do you believe platforms like Zero Friction can have on the heat transition?
I think a lot, really. So first, as I said, the consumer trust, but that is really not a small aspect.
No,
because
you can tell us.
It's very important. And in a lot of cities or countries where networks have been there for a long time, that's the main issue. Consumers don't trust their utilities. We met a Slovak member of the parliament, which told us, I love district heating, but I don't like my Slovak utility because they're crook or whatever. It was a long time ago. And we were a bit shocked. But I think the point is that many times consumer they are afraid that they don't pay the right price, and they want to opt for solutions that look a bit more liberalized, but that's not always the best for them.
And so there you see a big need, and also making sure that you can bring the trust to these companies, to these end consumers.
Yeah.
And speaking about, you say natural monopolists, but that's actually, if you look at water companies already for so many years, water suppliers are
of course.
also kind of a monopolist, and nobody is mentioning these. Okay, prices are different, of course, but people are used. I think it's more, like you say, it's a transition element that... it's a transition element that you say you had your choice before of your gas supply or whatever supply or your source, and that now you are indeed linked to one provider and you don't have the freedom of choice, but then it's the provider who needs to be more service oriented, I think.
And there are so many different models as well. In the end, in some cases it's all public, in some cases it's all private, in some cases the infrastructure are shared. I think one thing that is sure is that though when you are developing your network, yes, you need to know that you will have a critical base of consumer connecting, and that's the specificity of our sector. Yes, we're not going to build a pipe for 2 consumers.
No.
So there is this aspect that you need to kind of secure that you will have some long-term users.
Yes.
And it doesn't fit with the idea of, yes, I want, and 2 years later, I disconnect. No. If everyone does that, then you cannot say if your business case is going to be sustainable. So you have to have the proper tools to make sure that you can have this strong connection with the consumers. First, to gather their data, to operate your network in a better way, understand better the consumption profiles, give them some sense of ownership on their heat consumption. So that they understand why they pay more, what they pay less, and how they can do better.
How they can influence it.
Indeed, and create then this trustful relationship between the two.
I can only emphasize on that is that we see that actually a heat supply has an important role of just delivering heat or the technical element, but also being more service provider and give much more highlights to the end consumer and give them the tools to steer on it themselves. I completely agree.
And even at the level of the utility, to play on the flexibility and to be able also, I mean, if you know better your consumer consumption profile, you can also, for example, better decarbonize because you know how you can reduce the use of certain type of assets.
Indeed, and that's where you see there's few examples like on digital solutions. There are a few of your members also who are really on this into this digital. Can you highlight on a few examples where you see some significantly improvement? You mentioned already a few, like in Bologna.
I mean, so many. I think I cannot be so specific but what about my city? But everywhere, really. And as I said, in Central Eastern Europe, the approach, which is the approach of the digital twin, which enables without having to invest significantly in changing your network, you can already better optimize it. As I said, in Utrecht, this cloud platform, in Bologna, in Vienna, it's already booming everywhere, and in Belgium.
Okay, fantastic to hear. Are there any specific, if you switch a bit to the policy makers and the regulation part, are there any specific policies or regulations that you still need, that you still believe that are crucial for advancing more the district heating sector?
Yeah, I think indeed. So I will go back a bit to one thing that we touched upon earlier, which is a citizen deal. For us, it's a major aspect. We don't have the solution because if it was so obvious, we would have done it already. But what is clear is that something is missing in terms of really triggering the replacement of gas boilers in homes. And we believe it's connected to affordability. We believe it's connected to accessibility of those solutions. And probably we need a stronger role to be taken by governments and by cities in doing that. And Ghent is a good example, a good practice for this, because we understand that in the city climate plan, they have taken on the task also to identify, for example, the areas that would be more suitable for district heating, to facilitate the information to the consumers. So we need more of that. And a citizen deal is also about finding new business models or smarter ways to finance, because of course everyone is like, we need more money. We don't necessarily need more money, but we need to channel it in a better way. And in particular, upfront costs, finding ways to remove totally the upfront costs. So systems where, I don't know, maybe the installer gets the subsidy, but then propose the service at a much lower cost. Systems that we see already where ESCOs are remunerating themselves on the efficiency gains, but then the consumer doesn't pay for the renovation or the installation. So all of that has to be much more mainstream. And then probably for waste heat, we could do more in Europe, not probably, certainly, because the potential is so big. So to see how we can further encourage industry and tertiary sectors to more systematically recover their heat. How do you do that? How do you encourage city to systematically combine their sewage system with the waste heat recovery?
For example.
It's a bit of regulation, it's a bit of incentive work, probably.
I know that you have a big important part as Euroheat and Power, that you have a big influence on the European Parliament and the European. But how do you collaborate with European or local government bodies to influence the policy?
I think the best way to, we can say, influence or work with the policymakers, the government, is to show them that it makes sense. And I think it's really important. We're not trying to promote the industry at all costs, but it's very obvious that in many, many cases, it just makes so much sense to develop those networks. We focus too much on building new. We have so much that's existing. I think a notion on the transition that is also talking about circularity, reusing what we have. The waste heat is there. Like we could harvest it in the next 3 years. So much sources to actually replace the gas boilers. It's crazy that it was not in the Repower EU plan, this thing.
Correct.
You know? So there are elements where it's important that we make policymakers understand that it makes sense. And that's why the Bring It Home campaign or everything that we've been doing to promote best practice or show where it works, I think that's our best weapon.
If I see currently, what I see is that there is also a big part is linked to the pricing. I think the business cases, I see a few good ideas coming up, but then the business cases don't get through because costs are rising of the networks and the pipes and etc., which is maybe also a bit of a concern. I don't know if you picked anything up on that element, or
I think that there are indeed, especially after the conflict in Ukraine, we had indeed a price increase in many, whether it's raw material for the pipe or even some sources like bioenergy in many countries. We still remained, in terms of price increase, much lower than most of the other heating sources, and I think it showed also the resilience. But in terms of business case, it's correlated to the need then to ensure a critical mass of consumer. Because I think we can cope with those increases because everyone's cost is increasing. Also for electricity grids, it's for everyone. But on the electricity side, every single person has an electricity connection. So for us, it's a bit different. And that's why a more administrated approach to heat planning and also having this more assertive approach to developing networks in cities will, I think, at least reassure utilities and companies that they will have a return on investment. And that's, without even talking about profit, knowing that you will have your return on investment and that the consumers will be, there will be a long-term relationship.
For everybody then important, consumers, investors and companies. If you look at the future, maybe look a bit further, and what's your personal vision of the district heating sector over the next decade, I would say, because we always have two important milestones in the sector. We have 2030, which is now getting very close, and of course we have then 2050, where it all has to happen. So what's your personal vision on I would say rather short term and the longer term for the sector?
I think in the short term, we can do already a lot. So we did a study which showed that in terms of realistic potential, technically possible, or in terms of projects, we could jump from 13% of the heat supply to 20% of the European heat supply. So already some growth, and we see that already in a lot of markets like France, Germany, Austria, a lot of new markets are growing. And I think it's going to be a lot about expanding what we have, building new, yes, but we can do so much just by expanding our existing networks and doing more with what we have simply. In the future, probably it's going to be, the sector is also decentralizing a lot.
Yeah.
And we also see that, to decarbonize or modernize huge network, you go little by little.
Yeah.
So we are also going to go through some type of decentralization, digitalization revolution, a bit like in the electricity sector. And I think, our sector in 2050 is going to be more decentralized, more modern, digitalized.
Yeah.
Yes, it's going to be full of colors. And by that, I mean all the sources that we're going to be, it's going to be a much greater mix of sources. Waste heat, geothermal, solar thermal, bioenergy, all of that, industrial heat pumps. It's such a rich ecosystem of solutions that we have now that we're going to be not only climate neutral, but very colorful.
No, I agree. I think, and we need to, it's an end. So here. So,
totally.
Yeah. And how do you see organizations like ours, like Zero Friction or other digital players, contribute to this vision?
I think you're totally part of it, and we will walk this way together.
Yeah.
I think in the future anyway, and if we have stronger requirements in every country to develop further and expand, there will be also this requirement we were talking about to have consumer transparency and trust.
Yeah.
I think, better transparency on the pricing and the billing will be a no regret. And we see that in the countries where they are very promoting the development of the sector, like Germany, the consumer pricing billing question is really closely linked to it. So I think
like
companies,
in the UK.
yeah, exactly. So companies like Zero Friction definitely have a bright future.
Let's see how this evolves. Can we collaborate more? Can collaborate Euroheat and Power and Zero Friction work together to drive this innovation and efficiency? How do you see this? Can we do more together?
Well, I think your heavy task is to do more projects that we can take up with us and bring to policymakers and to governments everywhere to show them that you can actually combine district heating with strong consumer protection, with flexibility and digitalization, transparency, all those aspects that are essential. I think it's important for us to have members and stakeholders and companies like Zero Friction, which help us doing our job. And that's, thank you for that as well. But I think we need to show that it works. We need to show that it's profitable. And we will be the bridge also to make sure that the regulation, on the other hand, and in the next European framework will enable such projects to grow and to thrive.
Yeah, that's good. So actually, if we need to feed you with more.
Feed us with projects, and we will try to make the regulation right. Yes.
Okay. Coming to the last question already. Time flies, it seems, and fantastic. Do you have anything extra you want to highlight, or you want to say, you want to mention to our audience?
I don't know. It depends. Maybe it's an audience that already knows that district heating and cooling is amazing. But I think it's, I don't know. I would just say that it's really important that our sector shows today how committed they are to driving this transition. We need to show that there's a bridge between what we wear and those old obsolete infrastructure, which sometimes have a bad reputation in some European countries. We need to show the bright face of our sector, but we need also to be firm about the fact that this transition will not happen by itself, and that policymakers also need to get their hands dirty in this whole process to help us. I think no transition was easy, no transition was free. We need also support. But the good news is that we can make it happen.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing your view and your vision, and fantastic to hear. And I would say, keep up the fantastic work, you and your team that you're doing of today. Keep on having the positive drive. We need a lot of positive, I would say, communication in this market. So fantastic that you make some time for us once again. Thank you.
Thank you
looking forward
for
the coming years working actively together.
We have a lot to do, Will.
We have a lot to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.